Are you going to be stuck in an office job or a co working job?
Or none.
Let's go.
What is one important truth that you believe in that a majority of the world does not agree with you on?
I think believe in your dreams and passions no matter what they are. They could be anything, starting something really small and probably which has an impact, or something that's huge could be very successful. But whatever your passion is, it should align with your values. And if you believe in yourself, then I think what the world cares does not matter. You should pursue it, should not give up.
Do you not think what you're passionate about will inevitably align with your values?
I think so. I think it what you said is true, but I also feel that a lot of people choose their jobs or their corporate needs based on the uh, money, based on the salary. Because right now the job market, India and abroad, is not very feasible. So I mean, many people give up on their passions because of monetary constraints and go for something that will be more financially secure.
What is your passion and how is it aligning with your values?
So, since I was young, I always knew I wanted to become an entrepreneur. I always had that passion in me to start something of my own, be my own boss, have the creative freedom to innovate, and also have the flexibility of time. I was always also very diligent and consistent. And I knew I wanted to do something that's not just profitable, but also impact driven. That was there in me since I was young. And that time, entrepreneurship was not a concept. People spoke about doing corporate jobs, something within your family business. This was not a concept at all. So I knew I wanted to start something of my own. And I recently completed my master's from USC in entrepreneurship and innovation. So I think that really equipped me and prepared me, and I got that risk taking in me to start something. Because through solving case studies, working with companies there, you get a lot of practical exposure. So I think then I got more belief and trust in myself that yes, I am capable of starting something of my own. So that's how this journey began.
How does your belief and your value system that we've just heard about lead to your current business? What is your current business and what are we here to do?
When I returned to Calcutta, I would either work from my father's office or a cafe. There was nothing in between. I did try working from a few co working spaces, which were great, but I found three missing elements in all these co working spaces where I found a market opportunity. First was the lack in comprehensive co working spaces. There were co working spaces with basic table, chairs, and a meeting room, but nothing more elaborate. Nowhere where people could take a break, recharge, come back to work. No focus on networking, collaboration. It was just like an office structure, basic table chairs. Secondly, lack of eco friendly and sustainable co working spaces. So there were co working spaces, but nothing impact driven. It was just to work basically. But since I was also very passionate about working towards a cause, this struck to me. And lastly was inadequate rest and relaxation facilities in co-working spaces. So same to what I said, concluding all of that, there was no separate space where you could recharge within the premise. Like you had to leave the space, go outside, take a break and come back. But I didn't want to do that. I wanted to just take a break in the space. So this was something that was missing. So I did identify a problem, and then I delved into the solution. 6 months, I just interviewed more than 400 people and all of different target segments, starting from corporates to artists to working women, students, remote workers. And they all identified a common need of a sustainable and innovative co working space.
Anuradha, you use the word impact driven a lot. And I feel in today's world, words like sustainability, impact driven, green, they have lost their meaning somehow. What does impact driven mean to you?
Impact driven means believing you can do something for the betterment of the planet, and also encouraging people to do the same. Taking that first step is very important, and also creating awareness on the same. You should stay updated with the latest trends into sustainability, what's happening. And sustainability is not just reuse, reduce, recycle. It's much more than that. I recently had a talk where there are actually 17 sustainable development goals, which include no poverty, gender inequality, sustainable cities and communities. So it's a very comprehensive and a broad, vast of issues in these sustainable development goals. And I believe that if you work towards one of these, you work towards solving the problem of these other issues, as these all are interconnected.
Sustainability by in itself would mean something that can go on forever without an external impetus. When we talk about fuel, like the current fuel sources cannot go on forever and ever. Eventually, we'll run out because they are not being replenished at the rate that they are being consumed. When we talk about co working spaces, firstly, the concept is very new. It is just a post COVID boom concept, realistically speaking, especially in India. Let's expand on what are co working spaces and why is sustainability a term that is relevant to a co working space?
So, a co working space is a workspace where not only individuals but also businesses can work. It's not limited to a particular target audience. It varies from corporates to working moms to artists to students, where people can network, grow together, share ideas. And a co working space is just like an office where you spend 5 to 6 days a week. So you would want to surround yourself with people who would help you grow and who you could probably teach something as well to. And I think sustainability is very important in a co-working space. Firstly, because post the remote work, I am not very sure for how long will we have these typical monotonous office spaces. I feel co-working spaces will be the future, and two very important things in co-working spaces are sustainability and technology. Sustainability, already we've seen Google offices incorporating green roofs, community gardens. CSR is at its peak. In India, our government is doing so much in the sustainability sector, particularly for women. There's the Mudra scheme. There's so many fundings and accelerators for women as well. So I think sustainability is very important because I think if you're a person living in this planet, it's your duty and your responsibility to give back to it. Since you are using its resources, you should also be able to give back to it in any way possible, which aligns with you and which is easy for you. It should not be a task. I think if you do something genuinely with a purpose, it becomes much easier.
And rather, when you look at co-working spaces or offices, I think Akhil and I share this when we feel very like offices are very sad places. People are, as you said, not following their passions or doing something because there is a necessity for money.
A better way of putting it would be
I agree. Yeah.
This air is not very fun, very vibrant. And I feel like oftentimes it's because of the whole cubicle system that we have, and that you're confined to your workspace, and you're sort of the workspaces are oftentimes smaller than the person itself, so you have to sit. That picture of Mr. Incredible sitting in front of his computer, this massive man sitting in front of this small tiny computer. That's the image that comes to my head. How in a co-working space are you going to change that?
So I absolutely agree with you, and that is one of the main reasons why we do not have too many cubicles in our space. Because in a lot of the co-working spaces, you already have this cubicle setup, right? We didn't want people and individuals from the same office to just network with each other and stay stuck in that cubicle. It's like you're in an echo chamber where you just listen to each other's views and that's your world, right? We want people to get out there, be more informed, be more educated and offer something in return. So that's why we have this open layout where people, with a little bit of privacy as well, we have these terracotta walls which are actually somewhat soundproof. So we did want to have a good balance of both so that it would be easier for people to open up and share ideas. That is why we've created such a fun layout, you could say, where that entire side is more open work, where people can work 4 to 5 days a week as per their convenience. We also have subscriptions based on a daily or monthly basis, suitable to the person's requirements. We have this area on the left side which is more fun, so like a cafe seating, then the amphitheater, people can take a break here. So it's not just a typical black and white office where you have to work all throughout your life. This will be a fun place for people to work into. We want this to become a person's second home. Like when they wake up, they should be excited to come to work. Work should be exciting. They should be eager to think that okay, something exciting might happen at Green Cove today. There's going to be a sustainability workshop, or there might be a art session. So there's always something new. That is also something that really excites me.
There's a flip side, no? So one end you have work, 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 only work, monotony, feeling strangled, everything. On the other end, you have too many distractions, too much going on, people taking too much time away from work. Are you taking that responsibility or balance on yourself, or you're saying people are old enough to govern themselves?
I think it's a solid mix of both. In this, I mean, people have to know what they have to work on and do that according to their diligence and work schedule. I mean, if somebody doesn't want to work, they won't work from an office, right? If somebody doesn't want to work, they won't work from even a cafe or even a fun setting. So I think this is more of a personal belief and a personal style of working.
So you're saying they're old enough, let them govern themselves. I'm providing them the opportunities, karne do jo karna hai.
Right. I think more of that. And we do not have too many distractions as per se. We just want to keep their work exciting. And according to the Harvard Business Review, they say 31% of people are more productive when they are satisfied with their work environment. So it was my responsibility to provide them with the best facilities I could, which, according to my research, I understood would benefit not just one target but different target segments. And then it's up to them and their personal understanding and belief if this works for them or not.
So, mental health has become quite an important topic of discussion, and especially in a work setting. So, when we talk about suffocating workplaces, it's generally that maybe the people are unhappy. The other side is maybe the people are too happy. And that thin line you're trying to play with, where you're saying that should have enough things which keeps them happy, keeps them productive. Do you think co-working spaces are the only way forward? Do you think it is the only future that we are going to have, or do you feel like offices will still have a spot in the world in the near term future?
I would say offices will have a stand, they will still exist, because not, see, everybody's personality is different, right? Some people probably cannot work from such a setting. There's nothing against them, but it's just how people are built up. They're built separately. So I feel offices will still be in play, but co-working spaces will become extremely popular. Of course, according, it's growing at a compound annual growth rate of 17% per year, which is insane. And with AI coming up, machine learning coming up, um, more entrepreneurship startups coming up. I think startups initially do not have a lot of funding to typically build offices, right? A lot of people do not have the financial means to build an office and work from an office and take care of their employees in that space. So for them, this is a much easier and it's an alternative solution. So I think in the future, co-working spaces, even in India, will really boom. I mean, I hear about one new co-working space every month in Calcutta. So, I mean, just seeing how it's growing and booming, I think it is definitely the future. Sustainably driven and technologically advanced workspaces are the future, according to me.
See, I think the compound annual growth rate is a little misleading because when you're going from 0 to 1, you're technically infinitely increasing your potential. So when you look at the raw numbers versus you look at percentages, things can look a little better than they are. When it comes to co-working spaces, I feel like the biggest downside is if you have a team and you're trying to work together, oftentimes you're disturbing somebody or there's too much noise, or how can you have a system where, like, how can you create a system where you have inclusivity, where you're part of everybody, but at the same time, if someone, say, has a team of 6 or 8 or 10 people who are part of the same company, can you segregate your space, or are you looking to create segregated spaces in the future?
Yes, of course. I mean, so there's so much learning from even this first startup at Green Cove. I have learned immensely about the different requirements for people, right? So a lot of people have the requirements where they do want privacy, they want a separate cubicle built, but of course we do not want to change our layout right now because it's feasible and suitable for the other target segment also. But when I do want to grow Green Cove into a franchisee in different parts of India. This is just the start. So I think adaptability and hearing the customers out is very important. So through that, I gain a better understanding of what could potentially work even better. So this is just the first venture, hearing customers, their needs, their demands. We'll of course be willing to adapt and innovate according to them. We will provide a setting where they do also have their space, but also some fun element within it. So it's all upon the customer. I mean, the first priority for us is obsess over customers, and that's really important for us.
So we've used the words job market, flexibility of time, and startups. And I feel that all three words are very closely tied together. I feel the next generation also does not wish to sell 10 hours of their time every day to work on somebody else's dream. And I feel a startup innately starts on a dream, starts on a problem, and goes on from there. You've spoken a lot about how you want to be of impact, how you want to be of impact to India, how you want to be of impact to the startup world. Why are startups so important to you? Why is it so important for you that people do solve more problems?
I think startups are important to me because you are solving a problem and creating an impact.
Do you not think larger companies or legacy companies are doing that?
I think a lot of companies and big corporates are also uh, working on startups. I mean, their minor divisions are delving into startups. Everybody's focusing on that primarily because of the three reasons you said: flexibility, the being your own boss, and again, aligning your passion with your vision.
Do you believe that people should, in fact, do a job? Or should everyone just dive first into opening a startup?
I think if you do your thorough research, and it should not just be research through online means, you should actually go out there, do your customer discovery, talk to people, understand what's missing. I think if you do your thorough preliminary work, then and you have that risk taking, you should dive into the startup. And currently you get so much help from the government. There are accelerators, incubators where they train you, connect you with more people. There's so many foreign domestic investments in India. So I think it's a great time. This is the right time for people to work on startups. Even Ramesh Damani recently said that the best time to invest in India was in 1991, and now it's today. So I absolutely agree to that as well. With the growth in India's economy, it's the fifth largest economy, growing approximately 7 to 8% every year. So I think everybody understands that it's a great place to start something here in India.
When you look at startups, when you look at freelancers who are currently, as you said, your main customer base, there is a lot of fragmented demand and a lot of fragmented supply. So oftentimes, your main clientele might be out of work. How are you ensuring that your space runs sustainably in that it is able to fund itself, it stays sufficiently occupied, and it doesn't really, like there is no over demand, under supply, or oversupply, under demand of your space?
So I think this was my uh, plan before I started such a space. I mean, I did the entire research, and that is why I didn't limit my target to a particular clientele, not just freelancers, not just corporates. We understood that this is a need for different segments and very varied segments. So I kept that in mind that, say, sometime startups do not want to work from here, or freelancers just want to work from their home or a cafe. So then we always have backups available because we are not limited to a particular segment. We are ranging from professors who have their classes over here to sustainability workshops that we conduct to startups that are working on their ventures from out of our space. So, I mean, we are not limited to a particular segment. This was always the backup goal that I had in mind before starting such an space. That's why we also had like a meeting room, and we also have a small office for four so that we cater to different needs of different segments.
Don't you think with enough time passing by, and don't you think with enough data points that you will gather, you will start converging to be like every other co working space?
See, I feel I have the first mover advantage in Calcutta. of a sustainable and innovative co-working space. And the sustainability aspect, I think, sets me apart from others. Even now, I have not heard of a completely sustainable co-working space in Calcutta, and I have that passion in me, and that is why I'm doing sustainability, not just because it's become like a trend. That's not my aim at all. I truly believe that it's imperative for us to do our bit, and especially the youth, because um, recently I just, in fact, saw an interview. We live by the 30 by 30 by 30 ratio. The 30% of India's population is under 30 and will remain so for the next 30 years. And India will become a $30 trillion economy by 2047. So, I mean, I think recently there has been a lot of belief in the youth within themselves. Before, this was lacking because you had to, probably people were more scared to talk to their parents. It was not so open as it is today. There was no concept of investments for people who did not have a particular goal. There were no incubators, no programs designed for entrepreneurship. I mean, what I started today, I will give 50% credit to my master's education. And I feel this education in entrepreneurship and innovation also launched in the last 7 to 8 years. So, I mean, now I think people are more equipped to create awareness and actually give young, ambitious people the resources to start something of their own. 20 years back, if you wanted to start a product or service, e-com was not so easy. I mean, you had to spend hundreds of dollars to start something of your own, and there was no build measure learn methodology in the lean startup. There was nothing, where there was no pilot, no MVP. But I think now all these concepts have become so common, and it's become easier to start something of your own if you have a goal and you're passionate and you do your research.
But doesn't that make it more difficult for you? Because given that the environment is so nice and everyone is able to start a startup now, and India is in the growing stages, 10 years from now, when India is no longer in the growing stages, when number of startups incentives start decreasing because there are already too many startups, how do you continue to have your competitive advantage in this world?
I am not afraid of more startups in my similar field rising. I mean, I want that to happen. I want many more eco-friendly startups in Calcutta, in India. I mean, I don't think people should be so competitive in the same lines, because I mean, just do something that sets you apart from others. Have a USP. I believe by that, and I believe understand your customer needs. So, as you said, after a few years, if when and so there'll be many startups, then how will we stay relevant? I think we also have to move with the moving times. That's very important. Say a customer wants probably like a wellness session every week at this space. They probably demand it. We also do have these reviews and feedback mechanisms. So, I mean, we typically just have to adjust to what the customer needs and keep innovating. Because I think if we stand still at where we are, okay, I've created this great space, we are hosting workshops, we have people of different segments coming, that's not enough. So as times move, I think there will be more problems, there will be different ideas, different things our customers would want. And we, as me particularly, and our team as Green Cove, would be willing to adapt to their needs. I think that is how we will stay relevant. And for me, having something that's unique is very important. Have that USP, that edge over others, that always keeps you on the top. And I have that drive in me to be on top. So I think we figure it out as we go, as progressive elaboration, and I'm sure that's how it's going to work.
And rather, you mentioned first mover advantage. Does that exist? If you look at Google, not a first mover. Facebook, not a first mover. Tesla, not a first mover. Do you think first mover advantage exists? If so, how?
I definitely think it does. Um, Firstly, because if you have started that with the right resources and right understanding of what the customer needs, you have that edge over the competitors. Something like Starbucks, right? They innovated their entire concept around coffee, and it was not just about coffee or beverages. They started this concept where they wanted people to actually socialize. It started off as becoming a second home for somebody. So the entire vision really resonated with people, and I think even today, the customer satisfaction in Starbucks. I mean, if I have gone to so many Starbucks all across the world, if even one drink is not okay, they are more than happy to replace it with what you want. This is not there in other cafes and other typical coffee shops. So they did definitely have a first mover advantage because they understood what is rightly missing and what the customer would appreciate and come back to. Customer satisfaction, of course, is important, but in the long run, you need customer retention. You need, and brand loyalty is important, whereas also brand advocacy. So, brand loyalty is where, okay, I love Starbucks and I'll go there regularly. But if I'm an advocate for Starbucks, as I am, whereas I'm mentioning you Starbucks
Very
today,
clearly.
very clearly, because I'm a strong supporter. So I have become an advocate for a brand. So similarly, I think I would want people to do the same, have the same feeling for Green Cove. I want it to become their go-to place.
Talking about advocacy, Vishruth has been gushing about your space. He's saying you have a beautiful space with like numerous different halls which look stunning and green, and he's feeling very nice. If I wish to open your same space, or if someone who views this episode says, oh, this should also be in Chennai, this should also be in Hyderabad, this should also be in Delhi, how would they approach you for you to be able to help them to open a similar startup to yours? Because you want competitors to come in and open a similar space.
So I think they can, of course, come up to me, and I would love to give them my suggestions, my advice on going about this entire process. There are a few things that I believe are very important, like hiring the right team to do your interiors. I had Komal Lunia Design Studio do up my entire team, which was amazing. I think our synergies really matched, and we could source the best sustainable products at a better cost also. So I would love to give advice to potential people who want to start something in the similar lines in terms of going about hiring the right team, how to approach clients, the market penetration strategies. You should not limit yourself to a specific target. Keep your target wide. Understand the culture in the space where you're going to start. Like for Calcutta, you need to understand the customer requirements of people in Calcutta, right? And it'll vary in every part of India. In Chennai, there'll be a different base. In Bangalore, there's a different
I think
target
it'll vary within cities as
within
well.
cities as well, right? Absolutely. So I think the right cultural fit is very important. um, Even how you keep your price points, where you see your break even, how you want to grow, what's your long term vision. I would love to help people out.
I think money is a very important discussion to be had because a lot of people who start up businesses and especially product driven businesses, money is looked upon as a very big, oh, that shall not be named but is required. How did you look upon money? What is
Absolutely.
some of the considerations that you had before starting up here?
Yeah.
And what is your horizon to break even or profitability? What are you looking at?
So Green Cove was a bootstrap business, and for me, of course, the profitability of the business is very, very important because I want this to grow, not just be in one place, and also be successful here where I've started. So there were quite a few things that I thought about before delving into this business. First was, of course, what are the fixed costs, the costs that would be associated on a daily basis, monthly basis. What will be the return on investment, break even point. So I think with careful studies and observations, I came to the conclusion that, say, by third year, even if we have 20% of our space full, it's going to still be profitable because the costs are basically electricity, rent, and wages. But that gets covered up because we have different amenities that we offer tailored to different pricing strategies. So we've kept it that way as well. And also, when we host it out for events and workshops, there is also a premium that we charge. So I think I kept everything in mind. And my worst case situation was, in case it did not work out in some way that I wished, this space could always be relocated and redone in different ways. But that was, again, the last resort. But I don't see that happening at all. So I think we are well on track.
If you were to give me 5 learnings that you've had from running the space for as long as you have been, what would they be? 5 major learnings that were unexpected.
I think firstly, belief in yourself. That is one learning I've had throughout this journey, because you know why you started this, you have your goal set, but there are a lot of people who might not believe in your vision, right? And that does cause upheaval and some potential negativity within you, that am I doing this right, am I not doing this right? So I think you always have to believe in yourself and be passionate, because the business might not always do well, right? You'll have highs and lows, but if you believe in yourself, you have that passion, you will come across it. Second learning would be, again, be hire the right team who believes in your vision and supports you throughout in this journey. That's very, very important. The third thing would be, um, you need to have grit in this business, grit, courage, because there is constant um ups and downs. So you just cannot give up. I think grit is another thing that's very important. Secondly, adaptability is very important. This is what I really understood from business, from Green Cove today, because say my plans were tailored and my pricing strategies were tailored according to my understanding and my first time try of doing something like that. But I realized you need to be flexible. That's very important. You need to understand and meet the customer somewhere where even he's satisfied and where you also don't lose out. So adaptability and flexibility again is very, very important.
So, Anuradha, we've spoken about a green space, sustainability. What are the top three things that you've done here that are adding to the sustainability or that have allowed you to use the term sustainability?
So, firstly, our lights are all made of bamboo, jute, curtains of linen. We have terracotta in the entire space. Terracotta does not give out harmful VOC paints, which are harmful. And they also are a natural source of heat regulation. So, that's something that we've incorporated. We have a lot of natural lighting, so that's energy saving. Then we do plant a tree in the tea gardens that we have. From the money we earn, like a percentage of the funds goes to planting a tree there, which we strongly believe and implement. Then we also support eco-conscious suppliers and local artisans, and by doing this we also want to create and move towards the momentum of the zero waste initiative. So entire community wall is made of repurposed plywood as well, like all of them are reused wood and plywood. So all this promotes for a healthier indoor environment and also promotes sustainability. Then we have sustainability workshops, so that's also creating awareness, which is very, very important.
Oftentimes, education is the most time consuming, money consuming, with the least measurable output, at least. How do you reduce those and increase the output? How can you measure the output?
I think you can measure the output by actions. If somebody's come to your conference and they tell you that, okay, we've actually started planting a tree, we've become more mindful. It does not have to be big things, right? It can be basic things. We've stopped wasting water. Uh, we've informed our children to, like, switch off the lights whenever they go out. And see, all this is there in us, in our unconscious mind. But the more you listen to these, the more podcasts, the more informative things you listen to about sustainability, all that just comes back into your consciousness and you're more aware. That is why people read. Like, that is why reading, hearing informative podcasts, and talking to people is important, because then whatever knowledge you have comes back to the consciousness and you actively work on it.
So, Anuradha, we have a tradition on our podcast. The last guest has left you a question. We would like you to answer that and then leave a question for the next guest. So, the question we have for you is, what would be your one tip for managing your time as a founder?
I have quite a schedule. Like, I wake up early, I read for 1 or 2 hours, then I come to work, I go to my father's office to work. Then I am also very active. Like, I play golf, I swim, I go to the gym. So my days are typically packed during the weekdays. Weekends, I probably meet my family or meet my friends. So I think keep your weekends free for your family, friends, and even divide your day well, so that it's not just work or not just socializing and not just exercise. It's a mix of all. So I think if you keep that schedule and maintain it for a few days, it automatically becomes a part of your habit and routine. I actually read a book, The 5 a.m. Club. There they say you take 21 days to get in a routine, the next 21 days to be happy with that routine, and the next 21 days to actually be very comfortable and it's become a part of your life. So I think this is actually quite true. I mean, since I started that book, I do wake up at 5 a.m. and it's transformed my life completely.